Today's IT professional has a lot of decisions to make about how to configure their environment and how adaptive to make their infrastructure. I think a great analogy for this is the military model of standing armies and ninjas. So I want to talk a little bit about enterprise IT agility and what it means to be in a world of uncertainty. If you're in a time of certainty, a standing army is a good thing. A big fighting force, huge castle walls, these are strong deterrents that keep the peace. But in times of uncertainty, you need a ninja. You need an army of one. You need to be able to adjust your tactics on the fly. In fact, the perfect army looks like respawns in a first-person shooter. Each time you enter the battlefield, you're equipped with the skills and tools that match what's needed most right then and there. Well, we're in a time of unprecedented uncertainty in IT. There have only been a few big shifts in IT since the advent of the computer, so this is a pretty big deal. One of those shifts was a transition from mainframe computing to client-server. Another was the move from procedural programming to object-oriented programming. Then there was the shift from circuits to packets, going from frame relay and x25 to the internet. And finally, client-server moved to the web. In each of these cases, this change was irresistible. And while there were a lot of people who couldn't make the jump, say from procedural to object-oriented programming, or from circuit-centric to packet-centric networks, ultimately the advantages of those changes were so overwhelming that the change was irresistible. Today, we're in the middle of a stampede of changes. The consumerization of IT. The end user is now the locus of innovation. A child born today will always be connected. And that means they'll approach the world in a very different way as employees, as customers, as partners, in a way that changes what people expect of their business IT organization. That IT organization itself is under attack a little bit. We're seeing the end of the IT monopoly as the business unit recognizes that IT services can come from elsewhere. Examples of this are already happening all over the place. Web analytics, for example, remote testing, CRM, and offline backup are all tools that someone else introduced into the company, and now enterprise IT has to scramble to support. So I want to think about the military a little bit. This is Paul K. Van Ripper, who in 2002 participated in a U.S. naval combat exercise called the Millennium Challenge 2002. In it, he played a thinly veiled Iraqi Navy taking on the better armed, more advanced U.S. Navy. If you went up against the U.S. Navy with a bunch of speedboats and propeller planes, you'd lose, right? But what Ripper knew was that adaptivity would win. In the end, after playing this war game, Van Ripper decided to opt for the strengths he had. He had a horde of small boats and planes, and as soon as the U.S. Navy showed up and said, we're going to invade, Van Ripper directed all of his small boats, craft, and some cruise missiles at the Navy and sank almost all the boats very, very quickly. The exercise was suspended by the government. The losing ships were refloated and they reran it according to new rules of engagement that favored the larger ships. There were a number of allegations that the exercise was scripted, and ultimately Van Ripper resigned his position mid-game. Because what he knew, and what it took the Navy a long time to realize, is that in an uncertain environment, the best choice is agility. Today's virtualization and cloud computing options give enterprise IT the ability to be virtually agile, the ability to change their infrastructure on demand in order to deal with the tremendous amount of uncertainty we're seeing in technology today.